Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and this is the third video to teach you how to build your Gravity game. There will be probably probably this video and then another video toward the end. Well, probably 4 videos, maybe 5, depending on how much I ramble like I'm doing right now. So I'm going to cut that out and we'll actually get to building this game. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, now that we have our open scene and our end scene completely built, is we want to go to level 1. And then we'll zoom in, zoom way in here. Okay. Now, this is where we're going to build our first level of our game. First thing we want to do is change the camera background color to black. And then we will start importing assets into our sprites. Now, we already have some stuff in scripts and scenes. Sprites is now where we're going to import some assets. You should have built these on your own. The assets I'm about to import are my assets that I created. Don't just recreate my assets, okay? You're going to make your own assets. Hopefully you've done that so far. If you haven't at this point, stop this video, go make some assets for the game, then come back whenever they're ready to go. All right, I'm going to click Import New Asset. I will go to my Sprites folder, and I'm going to grab all of these and bring them in. Okay, so now I have all my assets ready for the game. First thing I want to do is set up my actual level. So I'm going to click my level 1, and I want to set up my pixels per unit. Now my levels are set up for like 16 pixels per unit. Yours are probably going to be different. Okay, so play around with your pixels per unit until it looks like it's supposed to look, especially in the relationship between your level and your characters. Okay, 16 pixels per unit for me, and I'm going to turn off the filter and hit apply. And then I will bring in my level. Okay, and it's a little bit bigger than the camera, so I will change the camera. I will move the camera up just a little bit so that we can see it there. And I'll put my level right in the middle of the camera. Okay, good. So now I have my first level in there. Now there's one thing that we need to do to this level to make it a playable level or make it interesting to play. We need to actually, I'm gonna make my camera just a little bit bigger. We need to actually add a box, or not a box collider, sorry, but a collider around this level, okay? Remember when I was telling you that we want to have transparent, the playable level or the playable area in the level is going to be transparent? It's because we're going to create a collider that goes around this area of the level here, and our character is going to be inside this, the transparent area. Okay, so let's create a collider, but we're going to create a new kind of collider, a new collider that you've never seen before. I'm going to go to Physics 2D, and I'm going to go to Polygon Collider, the Polygon Collider. And what this does is it kind of just looks at the object it's being attached to, and it tries to figure out where the edges are. And it's done a pretty good job, but we want to clean it up a little bit. So let's go to Edit Collider, and I'll zoom back in. And while I'm in Edit Collider, you can see that I have this little box that's kind of going around the edges here. If I just put that box where I want it and I just click and drag, I can move the edges of this collider so that they snug up against the edges of my level, which is what I want. And I'm not going to worry about the outside edges because, again, your character's never going to get outside this level. They're going to stay right in here. So we're only worried about this inside area, not the outside. Okay, perfect. So that's good there. So now I have a box collider. My character should not fall through the screen when I add him in. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to create my checkpoint. Okay, so I'm going to bring my checkpoint in here. Oop, I forgot to change my sprite options. 16 pixels per unit, and turn off the filter and click apply. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my checkpoint. I'll put it right there in the beginning of the level. Now, this checkpoint is going to do a couple things for us. Well, first of all, it's going to act as a starting point for our level, and anytime our character passes through it, the script is set up so that it saves the information of where the character is in the level. It saves it, and then whenever the character dies, it reloads that character from that spot, okay? Perfect. So a couple things I need to do. First of all, I need to rename this to a capital C checkpoint, just because my script is set up like that. So I'm going to put a capital C there and hit enter. That way it is capital C checkpoint. And I also need to add a collider around this. I'm going to add a box collider. I'm going to edit it so it's just a little bit more snug around my artwork here. Okay, perfect. Oh, come on. All right, beautiful. Okay, now I do not want this to be a traditional box collider, okay? Because what colliders do is it basically keeps you from being able to interact, right? It keeps you from being able to pass through this stuff. I want this not to be a solid object, but an object you can run through. So I'm going to set this as is trigger. So it's a trigger object now. So now my player can, jump into that and everything else. So once this checkpoint is set up, we can actually turn this into a prefab. I'm going to drag it down into my prefabs right there. And so now we have a checkpoint prefab. Great. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to create our end level, and that's actually pretty easy because we just drop our checkpoint prefab right at the end. And for me, I'm going to color it green. So I can go over to the sprite renderer and I can change the color of the sprite renderer and make it a nice green. Okay, now when that's done, I'm actually going to rename this. Let's go over here, rename this end level. And I'm going to drop it down into here and create a prefab. Perfect. Next thing is our spikes. So I'm going to set my pixels per unit to 16, and I will set my filter to point and hit apply, and then I'll drop a spike right in there. Perfect. Okay, great. So now my spike is set up. Let's create a collider around this guy, and it will be a box collider. That's fine. And it will also stay a collider and not turn into a trigger. I'm just going to move that in just a little bit. So now we have that, and it doesn't need a rigid body or anything like that because it's not a, it doesn't move, it just stays there. Now, if you did want to have a thing where you had spikes dropping from the ceiling or something, you'd have to add that into the script, unless you gave it a rigid body and then set its gravity to be a certain thing. But it would fall immediately once the level loaded. So you can get a little creative, but again, my script is pretty strict on what I'm looking for. So if you need changes to the script, just kind of work around them. Unless you want to get in there and murder my script if you want, you can open it up and start writing some code. If you know a little bit about what you're doing, that's totally fine too. Just save a copy before you start doing that so that you don't really make mistakes. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to stop. So I have my spike ready to go. And I can actually create a prefab of him as well. So I'll drop him in there. And we do want it just to be named V, right? My script is looking for collisions with things named V. So I'm going to just keep it there. All right, now let's set up our player. I'm going to move this guy out of the way. Okay, let's go back to our sprites here. Now with our player, we want to make this into an animation, right? There's some animations here, and we want to make sure that our animations are set up properly. So first I'm going to go in here, 16 pixels per unit, and let me check my time here real quick. I'm good. So 16 pixels per unit, I'm going to turn off the filter, and I also want to set it to multiple sprite mode. Hit apply. And then I'll go into my sprite editor and I will slice her up and hit apply. Okay, so now I have all of my different player sprites. I'm going to choose the first two here because this is going to be my idle right animation. I'll drag these out here onto my gameplay area, and I'm going to put it in my animations folder. And again, I'm going to call this idle right. Okay. And then I will take these next two and bring these guys in here, and this will be my idle left. Okay. And then I will bring these next two, and these guys are going to be run right. Oh, did I put my animation in the wrong spot? That's okay. Run right and save. And then these last two are going to be run left. Okay. Perfect. So now I have all of my animations. First of all, I want to go find this one that I mistakenly put in the wrong folder. I'll drop those both in there. Okay, now I don't need all of these players. I only need the player 0, so I'm going to delete all of the extra players out of my level. And when I go into animations, I don't need all these extra animator controllers. So I can just delete everything, all the animator controllers, except for player 0. Okay, so now I'm going to open up my animator controller, and let's set this up for gameplay. So I'm going to move this stuff around, make it a little bit easier. I'm going to bring in my run right. I'll drop that right under here. I'm going to bring in my run left. I'll put him on the bottom. I'll bring in my idle left. Put that guy right there. Now this is going to be somewhat of a complicated animator controller, but it's not going to be too bad. If you follow along, it should be easy to figure out what we're doing. All right, we only need one parameter for this animator controller. It is going to be an int parameter called dirx, D-I-R-X, capital D, capital X, okay? Direction X. We're basically going to just check to see which direction our player is running, and we're going to change the animation based on that. All right, so I'm going to right-click and go Make Transition. And in this transition, I'm going to turn off the exit time here, and I will go down here to add a direction X. Basically, if direction X is greater than 0, I want to run right, and that's exactly what I want. Now, I want to go from run right to idle right, turn off the exit time, set that up so that if it is equal to 0, we go back to idle right. Okay, let's do the same thing with idle left, make transition to run left, turn off the exit time, new condition if it's less than 0, because if it's less than 0, we're running to the left. If it's greater than 0, we're running to the right. Okay. And we'll do a transition from here back, and we'll basically just set that equal to 0. Equals 0. Perfect. Okay, so now we have our transitions from run or idle left to run left and idle right to run right and back and forth. Now, let's take a look at, let's think about this. Can we idle left? Can we be idling left and just go straight to running right? Well, we should. Let's actually make that transition, and we'll set that up to greater than 0, which is what we want. And we can do the same thing here too. Idle right to run left. That needs a transition as well. So let's set that up, and that's just going to be less than 0. Okay, now there are a couple more transitions we actually need to make. If we're running left, we want to be able to go immediately to running right and back and forth, right? Because we don't want to have to idle in between. So let's make a transition from run left to run right. Turn off the exit time, greater than 0. And from run right to run left, turn off the exit time, less than 0. Okay, perfect. So now our animator controller is set up. Let's go back to our scene, and let's finish setting up our character. Okay, first of all, I'm going to rename him to player. Okay. And we have the animator controller. We have everything there. Good, good, good. We want to add a box collider, of course, and that's a pretty good box collider there. We also want to add a physics 2D rigid body. And we want to set his mass to be super small because we don't want him to be able to really knock anything around. We want to set the gravity scale on this guy to actually be pretty high. We want it to be 150. Normally we've set the gravity scale to 0, but in this game, it's a gravity game after all. We want the gravity scale to be pretty high. And we are going to constrain his Z rotation. Okay. Good, good, good. All right, looks like everything's good for the player here. I don't think there's anything left that we need to add. Ooh, actually there is something we need to add, something very important, the script. So let's go to our scripts and let's add the game script to the player itself. Now, if we've, let's, before I get excited, let's make a prefab out of him really quickly so that we have him for the other levels. Okay, we have the game script. All right, now, if we've done everything right, first thing we want to make sure that he's on top of this thing when we start. Okay, if we've done everything right, then when I hit play, I should be able to run around, the animation should change, I should be able to jump to the top of the level. If I hit the spike, it should die. I should die. If I hit the end goal, I should go to the next level, but there is no next level. So let's test it. Okay, so I can run, my animations are working properly. Okay, if I hit the spike, I go back to the checkpoint, which is what I'm looking for, and I can jump and run along the top of the screen. This is fantastic. The game is basically built. This is the game. So I'm going to actually cut this now. I'm going to cut this video now, and in the next video, we'll finish fleshing out level 1, and we'll kind of build all the other levels too, because it's actually a very quick process once we are this far. So at this point, you should have your level 1 semi-built. You should have 4 prefabs, checkpoint, end level, player, and your spike. And then at this point, we're basically almost done, honestly. So I will see you in the next video where we will finish building this game. Thank you for paying attention. I'll see you next time.